Test, test. Yep. I'm gonna let this go for a little bit because my last stream, I click start, and then on my YouTube video, it's like there's no content for a while. I really wanted to get into it because I didn't want to. I didn't want to have one of those streams that's like for learning content where it takes like 10 minutes before they get to the meat. But anyways, yeah, I'm just gonna let this run for a bit. While it's running, what I'm gonna do is create some assets because I really wanted to have some kind of like image representation um, for when you select a different car. I know it doesn't really mean much, but darn it, I set my mind to it, so we're gonna do it. Plus, you can see how good I am at drawing, and this is why I use assets for all my stuff, because I am not an artist. Yeah, just use this. Dank intake. All right, car one done. So yeah, I'm still just gonna let this stream run for a bit before I start talking about the main stuff because, like I said, don't want to lose any content again. No, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Yeah, just making some cars. It's really bad, but must be done. Okay. 2 minutes, that's fine. Let's get this going. All right, so what I did yesterday is now on GitHub. In the video, you'll see like this live stream eventually gets posted on my YouTube, and then in the description, I'll have a link to the GitHub as well. There's a link there to my Streamlabs donate page if you want to help me buy some of the many assets and subcontractors I'll need to continue working on my game. But anyways, yeah, let's get back to it. Here's the GitHub. I have my first commit, and in there I link to the video where it's posted, but also at the end, if you watch the video, I renamed my struct because I used name as a name, which is technically a reserved keyword. They shouldn't even let you put that in there now, but this was a very recent change for 4.13, so I logged the bug, and I'm sure this will all go away. So yeah, let's do some stuff. Where we left off is we essentially just have a read-only solution. So you can load up a car, you can load up another car, but I mean, we're making games, right? We're not really making a dictionary or whatever. So what I'm thinking of doing is, well, hypothetically, this will be some kind of car store. And then what we'll do is we'll buy the car, and then owning the car in and of itself will do something. So you essentially need to have a collection that we can modify at runtime, like we're using the data table, and that can only be modified at design time. So to have something that you can change, we need to think of another way of doing it. Oh, I meant to go do this. That's probably not going to work right. Anyways, so to do that, I mean, I could just make a little simple example, but how I really do it is I use a save game. I mean, I could just make I could use this database collection that I put on my controller as a example for the data store, but when you close the app and reopen the app, it's gone. So we want a more persistent storage. More often than not, most games need this. So that's the second thing I want to do. The first thing I want to do is introduce, this is a technique that I use. It's probably not the best way of doing it, but we run into a problem really quickly when we want to start doing things like buying one of these cars, and that's so from yesterday, I'd load in the entire row into this when you're looking at it, and then if we were to buy it, I'm not going to use the entire row in of itself to store in our long-term storage because there's a lot of information that we don't need in there, and it's the question is how do you access it quickly? Like what do you say? Okay, database, give me this car. So what we need is essentially a key. So one thing I want to do just to make this a little bit easier, show the mouse cursor. I think that'll make it so when I play, yeah, it won't steal my mouse, so I can just demo it a little easier. Yeah, you won't hear the Unreal noises, just the, or maybe you will. Yeah, I have my desktop audio going through here. All right, so here's our database, right? And we have these names. These names are how you access these rows. It's really simple right now because in our UMG, what we're doing is we're enumerating through the list. But what happens if you need a single one? This is a name structure. We could use names, but that would kind of make it so you have to type in the name of your key every time you want to use it. So what I like to do is create a new structure or a new thing. I want to use enumeration. So I'm going to call it car types. And again, we're entering a nice little situation here where how I've organized my files isn't ideal, but we're going to have to live with this because I've already checked it into source control. Although it's GitHub and it doesn't have diffing, so it doesn't matter. I don't know. We'll just leave it like this. So what we're going to do, let's say car 1, car 2, I think I only have, oh right, it's 0 based. Right. Instead of moving these around, I'm renaming them because I'm expecting another issue to come up. But we now have this list. So in my UMG, in my main, what I'm going to do is just put a button on the screen here. Just for example's sake. Button load. I'll click get all, or sorry, get row. So I want to grab one record from my car database, TV cars. So I can pick it from the list, which, yeah, I mean, I guess you could do that, but what I really want to do, I guess what I was rambling on about before is I was to go literal name, and I wanted to say I have a function where I pass this in. You have to guess the name, so you have to go car 1, right? But that probably wouldn't work. No, that would work, yep. But say if I was like, is it called the car 1? Like this would be a bug because that wouldn't access anything from this database, and the node would execute out here. So I just made a literal enum called car types. So if you say pick this one, basically what I do is I map this this enumeration, I turn it into a name to access it. And the problem here is I think it's a bug and I've submitted an issue against it, but I'll show you my workaround. This is where I'm saying this is what I do. I'm not sure if you want to do this because this is where things get funny. What I'll do real quick here is I'll print string. I'm going to print what this is to the screen every time I click it, just so I can kind of see what it is. Because we initialized this enumeration to use like this literal string, and I want that to map to exactly what this is. If it doesn't map exactly, it's not going to work. So I click it. See, it says card types, new enumerator 1. That is, so the enumeration when you create it in Blueprint, it gets turned into, I guess not C++, but it gets executed as something else. And it's, if you were to declare this enumeration in C++, that's, that would be the fully qualified name of it. That'd be the namespace, and that'd be your type name. So it makes a little more sense if you're starting from C++. Another way you can do this is you can go enum to string, and then you can turn your string into a name. And I'm going to print that just so we can see what shows up. Oh, no, never mind. So that pulls out this, and this is where I think the bug is, because this is deceptive, because you could just go, oh, well, this is giving me the string that I want, so now I can just use this enumeration. But where this is going to shoot you in the foot, which happened to me, is this is a bug because at design time this gives you what you want, but if you publish this app, it's going to give you this one here. And this nailed me. So it's like you go to load, you go to do your thing, but it's giving you this this data. So so this is the question now: is do I go ahead and do this demo and commit this into source control with something that I know won't work in runtime, or do I show you the hack of what I do? And I think what I'll do is show you the hack, because I want this to work. I want this to be an example that you could actually build a game with. So basically what I'm going to do is, see how it gives you this data here? I'm going to rekey everything. And if you're sitting at home going, oh God, don't do that. Get used to this, because Unreal Engine is a great technology, but you do have to kind of learn how to work around it. So I've rekeyed my enumeration to this, but now the problem is I need to rekey my data table to this as well. And this won't break my pre-existing code of my get all and show, because it doesn't care what the name is. It just, the first piece of code says give me all the names. The second piece of code throws that name into the other system. So it's going to get messy if you start changing the order of things. You really have to kind of keep track of this. But, you know, really, I think this is worth it. All right. I mean, I could have made this more educational and shown you this misfiring, this get all rows, but okay, let's make sure we're pulling the right one here. UMG1 string to name. I'll update this if I'm not doing this correctly. So this is kind of just a little a trainer piece of code I'm writing to make sure I'm getting this tech right. I don't need to really expand on that, but what I do want to expand on is I want to change my base structure. And this is something that caused me some grief in the last stream, and I think it's another situation where we're in something that won't cook or compile. But anyways, what I want to do is first I want to add the texture that I was originally going to do, but I went with material, for some reason. But also what I want to do is I want to add the enumeration I just made. This, you could argue, isn't a good idea in the sense that if you pull the record, the row, you know the name, which means you could cast it back to the enumeration. And then you also set yourself up for problems because here, like this could be enumerator 0, and then I could like put it to 3, and that's not what I want. So you introduce the chances of creating bugs for yourself. But so what I'm going to do is just line these up. But I do this for the convenience of the code that you end up working against this database. You have easier access to what you want. I'm going to just bring in the textures that I made at the start of this stream. Get ready for greatness. Of course I made 3, but I have 4 rows, so let's just reuse one. I don't think we can handle any more excellent art like this. And then we'll just roll over and we'll go back to car 1. So we haven't really gotten to why I'm doing this yet. I'm just more completing what was there before. For the full item, I'm going back to my init. It's called map, but it's really texture. I'm going to call this the icon. Image. Calling this color, but I'll call this image icon. Oh, I love this. Image car icon. I did it again. It's how Unreal deals with renaming things. But hold on, I'm just going to mute my mic for a second. Sorry, I'm just drinking some coffee here. Set brush from texture. Oh, right, texture 2D. Oh, come on. There we go. There. I could bind this, I believe, now that I'm using texture. Okay, so we load the car. We get the other kind of cars. This is what I was going for yesterday. But let's expand this to where we can. So, like for my taxi game, I have it so you can buy cars, and then the cars make money. So, obviously, I won't do it in the same manner there, but I'll build that kind of use case. So, what I'll do to expand this, I don't think we need this enumeration for a while. We have these hit points that I could just rename to something. Yeah, let's just use whatever we're using. So change this to earn per tick. So if you earn this car, that's how much it's going to earn you per tick. And then what I'll do is I'll make another one. Car price. Just because I wasn't really using HP for anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to buy the cars, put them into another collection. So you could have 6 of car type A, and then we'll have it do stuff. So what I'll do is I'll put it into something. So like I was saying before, I could put it into something in my controller. I could put even into a memory collection in my UMG widget. But really though, I think the best place to put data like that is in a class called a save game. So we're going to create an instance, or we're going to create a class which inherits from save game, and we're going to call it BP save game because that's kind of the naming convention I've created. So what we're going to do here is create a variable called my cars, which is going to be an array of something. So here's the question: is what is this array going to be of? I could just make it the new enumeration we made. So every time you buy it, we just add it to an array of these types, because then we'll know that we have those cars. I could create a new data structure, a new struct where it's like, it says this is the car that I have had, and then if we're going to track any kind of new information for the ones that we own, like if we want to name the cars that we buy, how many miles it's driven or whatever. I think for this example, I'll just do this basic, very basic way. But it'll be in the save game, so it'll be persistent. So we now need a way that our example here can interface with the save game, because right now this is just the declaration of a class, of a type. So it doesn't really exist in our world yet. So I do it through, oh, this is my game mode, nope. I do it through my controller. This is more so because most of my games have always been multiplayer. If you do it in, like, say, the game mode, that kind of limits your where you're accessing your data, because the game mode will only exist on your server. You know, for simplicity, we could just have it in our UMG, because we're creating one of them and it's always on the local client, and it would make it a little easier. Because if I was to put it in my controller like I normally do, we have to kind of route our calls in and out of it, and that'll be kind of annoying. So I'll put it in UMG main. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, call it save. No, I'm not going to call it that now. I'm going to call it my save. For those of you that are cringing because I'm changing my naming convention mid-development. Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't be doing that. So right now on the construct, I'm building my list of cars. What I'll do is I'm going to make a sequence just to break up this logic. So step one, create the database, create the on-screen representation. Step two, what we're going to do is create a save game object of our new type. And we're going to set it to our in-memory representation. Oh, it doesn't cast it. Forgot about that. This is just because it has to be of a certain type. For now, I'm not going to actually make it save to the database or save to the file system. We'll just have it there, and we're already 20 minutes in. I don't want to be doing this for too long. Does not match the signature. This might be because I renamed stuff. I guess I should mention that too. You're venturing into risky waters when you start working like this, because Unreal doesn't really like right now. I think this is kind of a new bug that's been introduced. If you change your structures, yeah. So I mean, you're going to have to do some funny things like recompiling, and especially when you start using your save game. I had to do this crazy thing last week where I had to just add something to my collection, then remove it, and then it would compile again. So it's not perfect. I mean, it's great. I love this system, but you definitely you're gonna have to learn how to play with it. So I have my save game, and my save game is gonna have the cards that I buy. So when I'm in my list, um, I need to actually be able to buy it. So right now I have it, so I can look at the car, and then this is my close. I guess to make this make better sense, I'm gonna put a text in here, and this text is gonna say close, just so I know that's what it means. We're gonna create another button. I'm gonna call this button buy. Put it here. If you watched yesterday, you'll notice I did some really kind of funny stuff here, and that was just to make it so if the screen size was different, it's already in the kind of right position. So that's another kind of topic. Yeah, my background. Oh, right. Fill screen. But right now, this is built around the fact that this is a fixed screen, and our buy button's going to be right here. I segue a lot if you haven't noticed. Button buy. So when we buy, what are we going to do? Click close. We call our closed dispatcher. When we click buy, I want to do another one. But now we have our data structure. So this is why I added the type, is so that when you click buy, we just want this one enumeration, or this one, enumeration. So instead of passing the whole structure out like I did, or in, oh right, sorry, the way that the page talks to this load card thing, we pass the whole data structure in. We could have just passed in the enumeration had we built it initially, and then in the load or initialize of this, we could initialize from the enumeration. That's kind of how I built my stuff, just because I'm using multiplayer, I don't pass around full info structures. I just pass around the key over the network. So that's just kind of how everything's built. But so that's how we load this. But how when we buy it, we're going to send the logic to our main UMG widget, because that's where our save game is. That's where we're going to do all our business logic for this example. I don't know where you want to do it in your game. Probably not in your UMG, but that's where I'm going to do it for this. So we're going to call the buy event, and I want to pass in, can you do this? No. We're going to pass in, or our signature is going to be the card type. And we're just going to be like, there you go. And we're going to call this so what you might want to do here would be your kind of logic to see if they had enough money to buy it, or if they're the right level or whatever. So, but for now, we'll just say if you want to buy it, you've got it, and you get it for free. So I'm going to go back to my main. Here's the info card that I had, and I have my new buy method. So now I have the enumeration. Now I have my save game. And what we could do is just add it. Oh man, me and my quick clicking. I saved it. Alright, sorry. It's called My Cars. I have this array in my save game. And what I want to do is add the car that I've just said that I want to this collection. So I can play it, and I can click it, and I can click buy. But we have no real way of knowing what's going on here. So what I'm going to do is create another little bind, much like this one, but it'll be of the cars that I've purchased. And this is where I was rambling about passing in the structure. If I made it where it's just based on the enumeration, I could make a generic button for cars, and this, like, I could use it for the store, and then I could use it for the ones that I've purchased. But because this one needs the full structure, I can't really bind that because my save game is just this list. Hold on for a second. So I could either refactor this, or I could just create a new list item. And I think what I'll do is just create a new list item. UMG my car list item. Like I said last stream, I didn't fully plan this out. I'm just kind of making this up as I go, and you know, the lesson here is how to work with the data. This is kind of working with data in inefficient ways and poorly designed structures. So if that upsets you, it's not the point. So please just take how to actually use the data, and definitely write something a lot smarter than what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to do this a lot like the other one, where it's just going to be a button. So I'm going to add a button. I'm going to replace my parent with the button. Text. I'm going to bind the why don't me and my shift ability has been very terrible. So this will be what we're going to bind. So from the full from the main rather, click buy. We're going to add it to something, and then we're going to bind it. Now, what I want to do is create a generic method for the binding, which is something I'll probably want to do for the car database list as well, because right now I'm doing it on the event construct, which only fires once. And we'll probably want to, in a game, you'd want to do it more than that. If you wanted to have like filtering, or if you wanted to, you know, make it so you don't have access to all the cars at first, and then you want to like add them. So what I'm going to do right now, this adds to that collection of my cars, but what I'm going to do is just create a custom event called bind my cars. And it's essentially going to get this data for each. It's going to loop through it. I need to make a... What I'm going to do is wrap this in a vertical box. And I'm going to make this fill the screen up. Get rid of this because I don't need it anymore. It's just an example. I'll make this make a little more sense. We'll call this all cars. We'll just say my cars. And we'll say that the all cars is 10%. The all cars list will be 40%. The my cars 10%. And I'm going to copy this wrap box. My cars. That'll be 40%. So it'll fill up the whole screen. Yeah, consistently. Oh, we can get fancy here. Look at that. Isn't that nice? So now we have the cars that we can buy. We're going to buy them. It has to do something. Well, it's adding to the collection, but we don't have any representation for it. Another thing I want to do, this is my full card. After I buy, I also want to call close, just because that's how I like it. So now we go out, I buy it, go back to the list. I also want to clean this up. I don't know why that's not showing. All right. This guy is going to be, I'm doing it. I'm making this scale better. Off the right. Okay, the image. What am I doing? I shouldn't be doing this at all. Terrible. And then our buy button, make this take up 30% of the bottom, and then I'm actually going to put my close in here with it. And then I'll wrap this with a horizontal box, and I'll put this in there. If you play my game, you might recognize this UI system right here. That's how a lot of my menus are. So now we have buy close, we'll show the image, which will be right 8.1. There. So a nice little modal dialog here with a buy or close. So yeah, that's not good. It's car B10, buy it, close. All right. So now that we're back here, I was making a binding list before I got distracted. I'm going to loop through my cars. I'm going to create widget G car. I have two list items. I have the car where I have to pass in the full structure. I have my car, which I'm only going to pass in this, my enumeration. And then I'm going to put it into this WB my cars. Add child. Again, I'm going to need to do binding like I did last time, but at least, so actually no, nothing's going to happen yet because I haven't actually called this bind. Bind my cars. This is after you buy it, but really you want to do it when the page loads as well. Just like how this should be in a method, and then I call, on the creation of the app, you bind your list, you bind my cars. Doing all right for time, I'll probably put that in. So this is going to create, just a button, but we don't have the size thing that I put in on these ones. And the other thing is that, oh yeah, here's another interesting thing. There's 3, although I've only technically bought 2. That's because every time I bind this list, I just add to it. But the thing is, it already exists after a while. So it starts to get more. So what I do is, before I bind, I clear it, clear children. So about car B, about car A, there's 2, there's 3. The count's right, but we're missing data, and I want it to be a nice size. So for my car list, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this in size box. Again, I'm sorry for doing stuff that really isn't related to the core of what this is about, but did I make that bigger? 24. Okay, fine. And then I'm going to do a binding as well here. My car name get. We need something to bind this to. So I need to create a init. Yeah, and actually how I'll do this will be a way where I can actually show you why I use the struct. So I'm going to initialize this, but I'm only going to pass in the enumeration that we've created. Car types. And then we're going to say promote to variable. My type. So what I could just do is get this and return that. And I think technically that will, yeah, so it's sending that data that we're using for the key. What we could do, and what I was saying in my first video, is you want to kind of limit the amount of work that you do in here, just in case this screams away and gets called a lot. So in the init, now that we have the type, what we could do is create another variable, call my car info, and we'll make that the structure. So we now have all this, but we have to load this information because this is a empty structure here. So get row So, I mean, this isn't exactly how I do this, but I'm just giving you this example here. So we've been given this enum, we're going to load it, we're going to stick it in there. I mean, you might want to wrap this in some kind of common system, but now that when we do our binding, we can go, we have all the, we have access to all this information, so we're going to put our nice friendly name in there. Cannot parse. Yeah, it's like, say what? Is this going to work? No. And I think why this isn't working. Just to test it out. I think it's because of the bug I was talking about, or the way this information varies. Oh, right. So I've bound this list, but the thing though is that I still have to initialize it. I still have to pass in the enumeration that's there. And because I created a binding for it and there was nothing there, wasn't working. Buy it, car B, car A, car A. So now we have our static persistent collection. Then we have our, this is what we've bought. And actually time's getting a little tight. Maybe I'll do some more, but we could use this money thing to create some kind of a loop through this collection here and add to something else. But I think for the gist, this is kind of the initial demo that I wanted to show everyone. The working with data as its most basic level, using UMG and data tables. So I don't know. I hope this is helpful. I hope this teaches people something. I don't think I've seen too many tutorials like this, so yeah, let me just go through this a little bit more. See if there's anything else I want to add while I'm here. There's someone else in chat right now, so there have to be no questions. So I could have it when you click this, it removes it, just so you know how you do that. Car list item, my car, because we have this button, and when we click it, my car. Oh, right, sorry. Click. Here's where we get into something interesting, and that's, yeah, you know what, I'll set it up like this, and we'll leave it as a limitation, and then if people are interested, I'll come up with a way of how we can work around this. I'll update the data structure that I have in the save game. But when we click this, we have to pass something back, right? What I'm going to do is when you buy it, it adds to your list, but when you click it, we'll delete it. So when I click it, it's like, what do I say to my main? Because when you want to remove something from an index, you need you need a position or you need something else. So what I'll do, I mean, the only real unique information we have is the type, but this is very limited right out the get-go because the type isn't a unique identifier in the sense that you can own multiple of one type. But this is a step in the right direction where we need to pass something out to perform an action. So from our main, when we bind our list, I'm going to bind our click. Create events. I find if you go add custom event, it wires it for you, but if you create or any other way, it doesn't. So I like to have it create my signature for me. And we'll just say my car clicked. So now we have a type. And what I want to do is go through this database and delete something. But either I need an item, which technically kind of works. But what if I have two? Will it delete two? Or do we remove from an index? So we have 0. Or, you know, what number do we put in here? We have an index. We need some way to know. Let's just see what happens if we go remove item. This would be hilarious. I'm not sure if it's going to remove the first or if it's going to remove all of them. And then because we've modified the collection, we want to rebind it. There might be a better way where you can bind the whole list. So when the list changes, it auto calls bind my cars, or it does that action. I mean, that's how you usually do it in other frameworks. I don't know how this will handle that. But anyway, so I'm going to click car A. Remove both of them. So today I learned what happens when you say remove item and you have multiple of the same in the collection. But what we really want is you go buy car A, buy car B, buy car C, and buy car A. If I click this one, I just want this one to go away. So what we essentially need is either some way of tracking its index in that collection or create a unique identifier system, which is probably what you want to do because, I mean, even especially in like networking environments, or if you want to have like filtering, or if they move things around, the index, it's hard to track, but if we create a unique identifier, you can do that a lot and a lot easier. Do it more easily is the words I want to say. But yeah, I'll just leave it at that. That's 50 minutes. I think that's a good place to leave it, I guess. Yeah, I hope this helps you out. I'll definitely commit this to GitHub, and it's accessible, so you can go through the examples, and you can comment on the YouTube video that'll be posted if you have any questions. But yeah, hope that helps. Have a good day.